Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. I have no idea what to call this. I gave it a little title yesterday. I think I'm going to call it More Than You Asked For. A little bit of JavaScript and a whole lot of talking. Um, yeah, you could probably hear my cat in the background. I have two of them, and one of them, his name is Krios, is super sad because my wife is off playing D&D with her friends, and he's a mama's boy. So if you hear him whining, I may occasionally have to go give him some pets and calm him down, but we should be cool. So thanks for joining me again tonight. Um, I didn't record last night's stream, silly me, trying to get this set up correctly for the first time. So some people were asking me about what I did last night and want to see it. So I think what we're going to do again tonight is we're going to cover some more React 16 stuff. And specifically, I think we'll go over error boundaries one more time and just kind of go over what I learned last night. And I really kind of want to experiment with it a bit and try and figure out if there's more to it than I thought. What we kind of discovered last night, it seems that you have to throw your errors in a child component's render method, which I found to be a bit strange, but maybe I'm wrong. That's frequently how I learn how to get better at this. I try things and I'm generally wrong a lot, and you just gotta suck it up and get over your ego and yeah, just give it the best you can and learn as you go. So let's do this. I'm gonna pull up some code here. Um, those of you who were here last night will recognize this. This is the main app I have here, and right now it's using just an aux component, which, if you're not familiar with React 16 yet, you can return arrays. No longer will you need to have a top level element in order to return some nested components. You can return sibling components, but they have to be in an actual array. So one way to get around having to do this literal array, and by that I mean actually returning, component returning your components like this, right? In an actual array. What we can do is we can have a component that will eradicate itself. So what it'll do is it'll remove its own wrap and thus allow us to use use this component just as we would as a wrapping div or wrapping element of some sort, but when our actual markup is made, it won't be there. So that's one of the first changes we get in React 16, which is pretty cool. Let me show you this file. This is actually not correct right here. There we go. This is what we're going to call our aux component, and all it does is it takes children and returns the children. This means we can wrap things in an aux JSX element, and that element won't be there when we actually get to the DOM. So as you could see back here on the app page, we have an aux component, and if we go to the actual markup, I'm actually going to pull up the React Dev Tools first so that you could see how the components, the component tree works. So you can see it right here. You can actually see the aux component in our in the React Dev Tools specifically, right? And you can see it's an array of children, and these children all happen to be stateless functional components, and they end up with this type of symbol, React element. But if we go to the elements and actually look at the markup, you could see that there's no aux element. There's no wrapping div. We just have the greeting component, the chains container component, and all the children it renders, and a form component I started last night. So this is actually going to be really useful in your apps, especially for for getting your front ends the way you want to. It can be a big challenge sometimes to have all these extra divs sitting around as you're trying to build out the precise layout you're trying to do. So no more wrapping divs, yay. So that's one of the first things we get in React 16. One of the other things I explored last night and I wanted to get to today was error boundaries. So error boundaries are a new thing in React 16 that force developers to actually explicitly take care of errors. If you don't pay attention to errors being thrown by your app, the whole app will just unmount by default. So that's certainly one way to encourage you to make sure you handle all your error cases. Hey, Chris, good to see you in the chat, man. Thank you for watching, and hope it's not too late out in Detroit. It's like, what? It's got to be like I can't do math. 1 in the morning? But thank you. So why don't we make a component that throws an error right now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about the fact that the whole app will just unmount. It's only 11 p.m. Oh, man, I really can't do math, man. 8 plus 3, you're totally right. All right. Scott's joining us again tonight. Stoked. It's almost 11:30. I know. It's 11:30 where you are. You're going to bed. I'm just getting into my prime right now. Got a beer here, and I'm ready to go. Is this legal on stream? I hope so. All right. Let's make a throwaway component again, just like I did last night. Just what this component is going to do is it's literally just going to throw an error, just so we could see how error boundaries will work. So we're going to make a new file. We're going to call it throwaway. Scott saw this all last night. He hung out with me. So this is going to be old news for him, but I hope you'll stay with me, Scott. But let's make our component. So we of course have to import React because that's how JSX works. And then we'll make our class component. Oh, we probably want to also pull in, we're going to destructure the component method off of that. All right. And then in a render, we are going to return, we'll just return throwaway. Okay. Actually, let's get even less fancy than that for right now. Let's have this just throw an error right away. Throw new. I can't spell. Error. Yo, what up? I am a nasty error in your application. All right, so we're just gonna throw an error right away, and we'll see what happens when you don't catch it, when you don't use an error boundary. So we need to export that. We're gonna save that file. See, I really should buy a Sublime Text license. I've used it for years. I should be more supportive than that, and it would be less embarrassing on stream, but y'all get it. So let's pull in this component into our app. All right, and then I guess I could have done that. Hello, hey Nikki, nice to see you. Thanks for coming by. I really appreciate you coming and watching me stream. Just to catch you up, we're going over some React 16 stuff, and we're currently talking about error boundaries. So, but thank you for joining the stream, and I really appreciate it. Yes, it'll definitely be good to have it recorded, Scott. I'm gonna digress for a short minute, but I had a buddy on Twitter remind me. I guess you would call it this morning or really, really late at night. He lives on the other side of the globe. He's like, hey, I have kids. I live on the other side of the globe. I can't be there when you're streaming. So please record because I like to watch the recordings. And, it just makes me really think about how awesome and how small this world actually can be. Or just like how global our impact can be. I'm just a random guy in Portland, drinking my beer and writing some code, and someone over in Eastern Europe might find the things that I do useful and helpful and uplifting to him, or her, and I did just that really makes me feel good, that we can be this kind of encouraging community around the world. So, yeah. Sorry. That's why this is called More Than You Asked For, because I'm probably just going to talk a lot more than you asked for. Anyways, getting back, we have the throwaway component we're still trying to put in here. So we've added throwaway. I'm going to save it. And this should throw an error immediately. And so this will reload. React is defined, but never component should be written as a pure function. ESLint's getting all mad at me. Okay, so I guess we should, we'll do it this way. If true, throw an error, and we will return something so that my linter doesn't get upset at me. Return throwaway component. So this should still throw. It should throw immediately, but hopefully the linter shuts up at me. We'll see. It failed to compile. Unexpected constant. Oh, you're so kind. You're so kind, Airbnb ESLint. If you want a really strict linter that really gets on your case, Airbnb is the way to go. But it's good for a prod project. So, yeah, you want to see how to do this the other way? Let's do it as an SF, stateless functional component. Let's just make it happen. It has no props. We are going to has error. We're not going to pass this in as a prop. Or maybe we can. Let's do that. Let's throw it in as a prop, right? Has error. We'll pass it in the app. I'm making this up as I go, right? So if has error, we're going to throw a new error. Yo, I have problems. We all do. We all do throwaway component. And otherwise, let's return that h1 again. And hopefully my linter decides to not yell at me this time. Has errors missing in props validation. It's a never-ending struggle, man. We'll just pull in the prop types. We could also do this with flow, but we'll start with this right now. And has error. I think it's also going to yell at me that it doesn't have a default prop, so we'll default it to false and we'll set it to true. This is a prop type of Boolean, and then throwaway default props has error is set to false, and we'll see. It compiled successfully, so nothing should happen right now. It should failed prop type has errors invalid. It must be a function, usually from the prop types package, but receive is it bool? I think it's bool. I screwed up. Some of these are shorthand, and occasionally I forget which ones are. I know func is func. Okay, so it doesn't have an error. Hey, Tyler, what's up, man? Glad to have you here. And we got some people in Montreal, Canada, having a drink. Cheers. I don't actually normally say cheers. It just seems like the thing to do, right? So, everyone, cheers. Oh yeah, dude, Scott, PHP old days, like doing what? Bar dump? That was those were fun times. Just the other day I was my blog is still in WordPress. Um and just the other day, like, I struggled for quite some time just trying to dump out some variables and just understand what was going on. It was a challenge, a bit of a headache. Um, all right, let's update this throwaway now in the app to has error. If you didn't know, you can do this as a shorthand for props to be true because they default to true just by setting them like this. I think that's to allowed to do things like, if you were doing a button, it's so that this works. This goes disabled equals true. So we're just going to say it has an error. So it should throw that error right away. And our whole app, if I've done it right, should unmount. Please do. Okay, so we don't have an app anymore. This is what's going to happen in React 16 if you throw an error and you're not handling the error callback, right? You'll just see my errors here. Yo, I have problems. And it's going to tell me where it was. And this is actually the error component stack. This is the only key that's on the error info that React is going to give you. And it says it happened in the throwaway component, which was created by the app component. And that's also inside of Aux, which is inside of provider, which is inside of the app. So it kind of gives you the stack of your components. So let's go implement an error boundary so that our whole app doesn't fail. I already have an error boundary component. What you'll see is here I have a little state. It just says error is false. And then we have a new lifecycle method in React 16. This one is called component did catch. And what it's specifically looking for is if any of the child components are returning, or I shouldn't say return, are throwing an error. And so what's going to happen is component did catch takes two arguments. It takes an error and it takes the errors info. I wasn't using the error info in this. Why don't we use that for right now, just so you see what is going on. So we'll set that to null, and we'll set the state on both of them. I hope everyone's familiar with ES6. If you're not, I'm happy to explain some of it. Go ahead and let me know in the chat sometimes if I ever do anything it's a little confusing. I'll do my best to back up and explain. But this is just a shorthand in objects for us. This is the same as writing error, and just saves us from having to write basically the same key in value name. It's pretty nice. And I actually really like it because then I pay more attention to what I name my arguments so that I can save myself typing later down the line. But we're going to set our state for both of these when the component catches. And we're going to check in this component. If state has an error, we'll do this. We will... we're going to show this error message that we have. There was an error, we're on it. But let's also do... this.state.error info component stack. I think that's what it was, if I remember correctly. But this should throw that same stack we see here, except this time it's going to throw it now and in the actual returned component. So this is why error boundaries are kind of cool. Not only can we catch them, but we can handle errors in a specific way. We can tell users like, hey, we messed up. We're on it. We're doing something. We're handling this. We're gonna get you a better experience. One of the hard things about one of the hard things about dev is giving your users a great experience even when things go bad. But I think that's an important part of being a good developer or building a solid application, is you have to be empathetic to your user when things go wrong. as much as you have to be empathetic to them when things are going well. And so, okay, if we have an error, we're going to show the error info component stack. If not, we just want you to pass through all the children, right? Similar to that aux component I showed you earlier. So we're going to save that. Prettier did its thing. And then what we're going to do is we will wrap, well, we need to first pull it in. Let's do that. We'll do it up here. So you should kind of be able to get away with having one error boundary. Yeah, go ahead and tweet it out, Scott. You can take credit. I don't care. But what I was trying to say is you should be able to get away with having one error boundary component throughout your application. And actually, I have an idea to improve it. Let's make that the second step of what we do. So it could be used throughout our app, but would be more useful. Okay, so down here, let's add that error boundary. Oh, I can't get my auto completion to work, and we'll just. So what will happen is when throwaway throws its error, if everything goes according to plan, this will show this, right? So, look, there was an error. We're on it, and it shows that component stack that I was talking about. You can see it matched here. No, it's all you, Scott. I appreciate it, man. Now, let's turn the error off on throwaway just so we can prove that the children will just get passed through. So we'll just remove this, and it'll take a second to reload. But you'll just see the throwaway component, which I think is the H1, right? There you go. Awesome. So that's kind of what we want. And if we look again at our markup, right, like just like the aux component, we don't have a wrapping div that we had to return. We were able just to return the children. And so we don't change our markup, but we change the functionality of our application. And so and you can actually wrap as many things in one error boundary as you want. If you wanted to catch your entire application, like if any error occurs, it's probably not what I would recommend, but you could do this. And if any error occurred in any of these components up here, the greeting, the chains container, new chain form, throwaway, if an error occurred in any of those, that same error boundary would catch it. And that might be useful in some situations to you. In other situations, you'll really want to isolate the error catching that you're doing. Now, I did make the suggestion that we could make this a bit more useful. And I think the way we can make this more useful is to take in a second prop and an error boundary, which we can call the message. This way, you could define... This way you can define custom error messages per boundary. Because you might not want to just say there was an error, we're on it to in every use case. So this is a string. We'll leave it optional, but we will give it a default prop of, we'll set it to this. There was an error, we're on it. We'll actually even set it to this template literal, just so Airbnb doesn't yell at me. All right, Chris, have a good night, man. Thanks for stopping by. I will try and stream earlier in the day sometime, so you can catch more of it. But we're recording tonight. If everything goes right, you should be able to check it out anytime you want. So we're going to set a default string to message. Like I said, and then up here, what I'm going to do is once I have a few properties on any object, I start destructuring. So I'm going to destructure error and error info off of state, and I'm also going to destructure message and children. I'm going to structure those off the props. And that way I can get rid of all these this dots. And then right here we will just return the message, and then here we will return the children. And if this does what I think it'll do, I found it weird for about 2 minutes, and then it became, yeah, right. It's easily one of my favorite things. I was talking a bit with Scott last night about how it can actually be a bit of a performance boost too, but it would only be a performance boost if you're referencing something lots of times. Because what happens is essentially, if you have this dot state like all over the place, you are going in and referencing that spot in memory every time you're looking up the next property on the object, right? So you're telling the Airbnb yells at you for not using literals. Even Tyler, the reason it yells at me has to do with this apostrophe. Actually, it thinks it's an HTML entity that needs to be escaped. And so I have found the easiest way to get around that, if I have an apostrophe somewhere, is to just put it in a template literal. And then it doesn't yell at me anymore. So that's just how I found to solve it. Maybe there's a better way to solve it, but that works for me. Going back to destructuring, like if we're actually calling down the object chain, like key, value, all these properties, you're making more calls than necessary. And so by destructuring, you actually assign that property to this variable, and it knows immediately where to go in memory. So in theory, it's actually a little bit faster. Granted, with the scope that we're doing here, we're not actually improving like performance. That if you said that to your boss about doing this, or your friends, like that's one of those things, you're right but you're wrong, right? Because you're just going to come off a little arrogant when we're only calling it 2 times, right? But for me, it's more about clean code. Clean code is really, really important to me, and that's why I like doing destructuring like this. It just reads so nice to me further down the page. Like I have, the less thises I have to read, the better it is for me. Yep, exactly, Nikki. That's there might be a delay here, but it improves reading legibility, right? Yeah, it's great. All right, so if this worked the way I thought it did, let's throw an error in our throwaway component. So this will reload, and we'll throw an error. And you see how it unmounted everything that's inside the error boundary, whereas last time it only unmounted the one component we wrapped. So, and it's showing our default message. So let's try something. Let's try message equals this is the whole app error boundary. I'm so creative, I know. You can make your jokes. It's all good. But if this does what I think it does, I'm passing in the message prop. It should replace that message for me. And this is the whole app error boundary. So I think that immediately makes this component a little more useful around our application, because we might want to indicate to our users like different messages based on where the error boundary occurs. And just to prove that, let's try something. I haven't tried this before, but we're going to try something. Let's wrap error boundaries inside of error boundaries. It's just going to be error boundaries all the way down. But what I want to try and accomplish here is I want to see which error boundary gets caught. It should be, I think it should be this one, because it's the boundary, right? It should stop. So this is just the throwaway boundary. So we'll try this, see what happens. I'm actually kind of riveted. Sweet. So it did what we thought. We can have nested error boundary components. And that's good to know too, because it means you can be really lazy about handling like maybe something that might take the whole app down, but also allow you to be very granular and specific. So this is just the throwaway boundary, and we caught it and we handled it, and that's great. So what I'm actually going to do, if you don't mind, I did this last night too. I'm keeping. Yes, it is sick, isn't it, Tyler? That's pretty cool. Um, I'm keeping this project that I just started called React Nano Kit. For me, it's just a tiny little like React. It's a minimal React like bootstrapper of sorts. I know Create React app is out there. This is not a diss to them. That's a great thing, but sometimes it's a little bigger than what I really need and what I'm trying to accomplish on my fun little side projects and stuff on my machine. And I built the first version of this called React Kit like before CRA came out, and I kept it up, and then I decided to rename it when React 16 came out. So I have this project React Nano Kit, and I'm gonna open it up, and I'm gonna add that message prop to the error boundary component that I have in here. Just so you understand what this project is a little bit, if you don't mind, I will pull it up on GitHub real quick. If you're wondering what this is Alfred. It's a really helpful tool. It's like a replacement for Spotlight on Mac. And I have a GitHub workflow that allows me to quickly search for projects, and it pulls them up. So, but this is my Nano Kit, right? A minimalistic React 16 starter kit with pre-made error boundary and aux components. So it has those things we were talking about. And I improved error boundary last night, and I'm going to improve it a little bit more. So actually, that code's over here. I'm sorry if you get dizzy with me swiping my spaces around. That's how I've always used. I just like full screens. It's less distraction for me, and I've just never gotten used to doing the alt tabbing around my applications. I don't know why. That's who I am. I'm not ashamed of it. But let's get in here and let's make this error boundary a little bit better. And it looks like I didn't even export the error boundary. So we really need to improve it, right? So silly me. Good thing I haven't really marketed this product at all, and other people would have tried to use it and be like, "Oh my gosh, man, it's all broken." That would have been kind of embarrassing, but PRs, always welcome. All right, we've exported it. Let's. We should do some prop types. We'll just do it with the normal prop types package for today. I do plan on getting better at using flow, so we will go back, or at least one point in this stream, we will spend some time learning flow together. Or maybe I'll even have one of you guys teach me, or gals. Anytime I say guys, my wife told me to say it's the California guys, but I really am going to work on it. I want to be as gender inclusive as possible. So maybe I can work on saying friends. My buddy Brian says friends to be gender inclusive, and I think that's a really good one. And maybe something you should consider yourself, right? Like, it's a way to be more inclusive around your workplace. There's all these small things we do that these tiny slights, man, they can really add up to people. And when we take the time to make just the tiniest little differences in the way we say things, it can mean a lot. But let's add these prop types real quick. So the prop types I need to add are for children, and we're going to be really lazy, and we're going to say any is required. And I think if I look correctly here, ESLint's going to yell at me, the Airbnb's ESLint, that I'm using an any. and I'm too lazy to go figure out what I should actually call it at this point. It's okay to be a little lazy when you code. Just make mental note of what you need to learn. You don't need to learn everything this moment. It might be better in some cases to push forward and just go back and learn something later. So that's just my advice. Take it for what it is. And then the message was a string, and it's optional, and we did need a default prop. And I know I could have copied pasted this from the other file, but I find some joy and pleasure in actually taking the time to write things, especially when I'm doing something for the first time. Now, default props is not a first time, but writing this particular error boundary component is, it's just a way for me to increase muscle memory and to remember what I'm doing. So we're going to take this, and we'll have a default message. There was an error. Sorry. Let's try. I actually want to add the shrug. I think this guy's awesome. I love using this emoji. So that's going to be our default message. I hope people appreciate that. And then we will need to actually pull this in, right? So children and message off the props. And we will do that. We will add a div. You know what? Let's just let prettier. Let's let prettier figure out the indentation, right? We'll just. How many are using prettier out there? I hope a few of you. I really love it. It saves me a lot of time. It doesn't do everything stylistically the way I would do. I used standard ESLint for a really long time, hence why you see no semicolons in there. I hate semicolons. Like, I kind of hate them. I'm being slightly hyperbolic there, but I am pretty passionate about my hatred of semicolons. So, maybe we need some beers sometimes, and we can just talk it out if you happen to really love them. Anyways, I digress. But we're going to display the message to our users and otherwise return the children. But we don't need this .props, and we already destructured state, so we're all good there. Why don't I give this a run real quick just to make sure. I'm just going to run. I should be able to run yarn run lint if I've set up my scripts correctly. Looks like I did. All right, sweet. Not yet. We've been using Atom Beautify package. Okay, nice. Yeah, I don't know that package specifically, Scott, but right, like if we can automate stylistic choices away, I think that's awesome. I think that's a win. I think it's a win in at least 2 ways. It's a win. No, 3. I've got 3 ways that being able to automate style away is awesome. First way is it opens up your own mental headspace to not worry about stylistic choices. Like, should I put this on this line or that line? Should I have commas at the front or the back, or dangle commas or semicolons? That's a whole lot of wasted mental energy. And we already need to devote our mental energies to the problems at hand, right? The second way is that it removes style from all PRs ever again. If all your team has agreed to use this this package to do your styling for you, then you don't have to ever worry about it when someone makes a PR. Instead, you can focus on like patterns and using, finding code smells versus being nitpicky about, hey, use some white space here, right? Like, and we've all had people on our team that do that. Like, I swear that I think some people just have to find a problem in a PR. It's not ever good enough to be like, hey, you got it right the first time. Good job. Ship it, right? And then the third thing I can think of right away that like a thing like Prettier or Atom Beautify does really well is that I think it's great for when you bring a new person on the team. I think this really actually matters. When you bring a new person on the team, they have so much to learn. They have domain knowledge to acquire. They might be learning a whole new stack. They might be learning a new computer. Literally, my very first dev job, my first day was my first time ever using a Mac. I had never used one before. And I remember for like 2-3 weeks how many times I had to Google like just shortcuts. I had no idea how to get around even the keyboard, right? So maybe not juniors I'm talking about, but it certainly helps for juniors. But new people, like unless you have a most excellent style guide and your style guide goes through extensive things about the way you're going to write JavaScript or CSS or HTML or templates or whatever, right? Like if you can automate that, if you can have it on save, just fix it for you, right? Like that new person can immediately start writing code without any worry of like the linter working right or like paying attention to this and that. I think that's a big win. I don't know. That's my opinion, but I think it's got a lot of merit, and yeah. I'm trying to remember what I was doing. I was updating the error boundary component in my React Nano Kit again. I told you this is more than you asked for. I'm going to chat a lot. I hope you guys and gals don't mind. All right, so we've made a change. Let's take a look at the diff. Just make sure I got everything I wanted. I added prop types. I exported it. That's really important. And yeah, cool. So let's push that up. If you ever wonder, I just have some aliases for my git commands. So CI stands for commit because CO was taken for checkout. But yeah, improves error boundary and actually exports it this time. And we'll leave ourselves a little smiley face, you know. I kid a lot. I like to tease a lot. I'll tease myself even. Pretty self-deprecating. And then let's push that up to master. Sweet. I need to take a really short break, everyone. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Yeah, thank you for being here. I hope you stick around. When I'm back, we'll get back into the actual side project I was working on. All right. Thank you. All right, I'm back, and yeah, I hope you have. Oh, you guys know Harry Wolf? Seriously, really cool dude, out of New York, works for MongoDB. Um, he made this Reptar. That's right, you people old enough to remember Rugrats. Uh, Static sites that roar. Did you see that? Um, Check this out. It's kind of a cool project. Super fast static site generator. That's Reptar by my buddy Harry Wolf. Seriously, coolest name ever, Harry. Good on you and your parents. Um, but yeah, getting back to what we were working on, as I took my short little break, I had some thoughts. I had some thoughts about what we could do to make this error boundary even better. And I know I said I'd work on my side project, but React Nano Kit to me is a bit of a side project, so I don't feel like I lied. Forgive me. I promise you, we will make like some cool stuff at some point. But really getting our hand on this will be helpful to make both complex projects for ourselves, but I'm really hoping that this will be informational not only to you, but to someone else who stumbles upon this at some point in the future. So I was thinking about this error boundary component, and actually I'm going to pull it up again from, hi Harry, I'm going to pull it up again here in the React Nano Kit project. All right. So what I thought about was this. What I didn't show you all that we kind of found out last night was that it seems like you have to throw your error in the render method. So what I want to try and do, and I guess actually we'll need to try this first in my other application because it's actually running. React Nano Kit doesn't really have anything to run at this moment. I mean, I could. But we'll try it in the other one. And what I want to do is I want to experiment with trying to throw errors in other lifecycle methods. And if it turns out that that's not going to get caught, what I want to try and do then is I think we can make a higher order component that we can use to wrap any component that we know we want to throw an error with, and that way we can abstract that implementation detail away and write it once and make it reusable and make it really useful in our applications. Yeah, Nikki, I will definitely tweet it out later. I think they'll just get stored here on Twitch. I'm not 100% certain, but that's my guess. So I set it to automatically archive, which I think is it'll store it for some period of time. But yeah, man, have a good night. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Getting back to what we were talking about, we were talking about like making a higher order component to wrap any component that we know we might throw an error with, right? So let's handle this. Let's start by let's go back to the chains application. And we have a couple error boundaries here. And we don't actually need this outer one. What we'll do is we are going to change throwaway, not to have a prop. We'll make an actual class component. And we will try and throw... I want to try throwing like component did mount. I want to try throwing in... let's try throwing in the constructor even. I want to see what happens. I want to see what happens to the error boundary. Because this kind of threw me for a loop last night. I really thought I would handle it a bit differently. So we're going to write our class component this time. And yeah, we won't have any props per se. We'll just comment that out for now. And our render method is going to look largely the same. But this time I think we're just going to return this. And then let's comment all of this out too. And then what we're going to do is let's try component did mount first. So I'm going to assume everyone here is familiar with the lifecycle method of React, but in case you're not, React components have a series of methods that will fire in a particular order and respond to certain events. Like, for example, like component will receive props, right? Like, the constructor will fire on the first time the class is initiated. Render is fired anytime an update occurs unless you set should component update to false, right? Or something like that. So, or anytime new props come in. My point being, there's a series of lifecycle methods. This is one of them. This guarantees that the component is in the DOM and will fire. So I just want to try and throw a new error here. I didn't turn off my my notifications, so that's cool. I see some Twitter love out there. Really appreciate it. We'll just call this one CDM for component did mount. I often will shorthand lifecycle methods to abbreviations like this. So call me out if you're ever confused by it. But so we just got our basic class, and we're gonna just throw a new error as soon as it mounts, and see what happens. Prop types is defined but never used. No unused variables. ESLint, man, it gets you every time. All right, we've compiled successfully, and okay, hey, that's good to know. So we can throw in other methods. That's awesome. I'm going to try what I tried last night, though, that wasn't working. And I'm going to see if what I did was I wrapped this throw in a set timeout. So we're going to just do a set timeout of, say, 3 seconds. And we'll throw our error up there. We'll get rid of that line. And maybe I made some other mistakes last night. It's totally possible. And if so, I'll have to eat my words. And yeah, I'll have to contritely go back to my group of friends and tell them, hey, what I thought was true wasn't true at all. I screwed up. And you know, it's really I think it's really important to work on having less ego when you develop, when you're a software engineer, because the less ego you have, well, frankly, just the faster you'll learn, and I think the more appreciated you will be by your teammates and by your community. Yeah, you know, just keep your ego aside when it comes to this. I'd rather learn and be wrong, and you know, have to go back and be like, hey, I screwed up, than just try and save face all the time. That's just not my style. All right, we set our timeout. We're gonna throw a new error after 3 seconds. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm gonna refresh the page so you see it again. But essentially, while I was talking in the background, it threw the error, but it didn't catch. And I'm really, this is I find this curious. So you could see that we have our uncaught error CDM, and I don't think I'm smart enough right now to know why this wouldn't catch, but the other one would. So let's try a few things. I don't know that we'll get an answer, but let's try a few things. And this could very well be a bug, right? Like, this might not be what they expect, or it might very well be what they expect, but I'm not sure. I'm wondering I'm wondering if there's some kind of new like stack created out of set timeout. I know that means it's thrown in the event queue, but it's just a really curious bug. Let me, you know what? Let me pull up a different channel just so Harry's wonderful face isn't just the thing we keep seeing. In fact, you know what? I'm just gonna put it in the other monitor. So if I accidentally scroll over here, now all you'll see is the pretty mountains of. I think this is California. I hope I'm right. All right, and we're gonna move this one out of the way. And this is the chains application that we were working on. So I'm just curious why this is like you don't return throws as far as I know. It just stops execution and throws an error. So I can't really understand what's going on. So what I want to try and do is I'm gonna try making a function that throws that error and seeing if I don't know why this would do it, but I don't think it'll change anything. That should be the same, but I'm gonna start there. Let's just see what happens. Okay, uncaught again. I'm wondering if what if we do something like scope it to this function, right? Like we can do a function that will call throw error, and I'll get rid of the other one, and we'll take that. This should be equivalent, but maybe something about being in scope. We'll change it to. I don't think so, but you know, you don't learn without experimenting. All right, so let's try and look at this. There's no stack, so there's nothing I can really like work my way down to find out what's going on. It's just uncaught error. Why don't we Google it? Uncaught error in set timeout. Did I spell that? React 16. That's definitely not new enough. I don't know. So you know what we're going to do? This is another thing I do. We're just going to go to Twitter. I'm just going to ask the universe for the answer. Aw, cute puppy. Sorry, I should be talking. But you can read what I'm doing too, right? I'm just gonna ask Twitter, like, hey friends, playing around with error boundaries and learned that it won't catch an error that is thrown in a set timeout callback. Anyone have any insights? And you know what I like to do? I like to let's do this. Let's undo what I've done. I like to take little pictures and add them to my tweets, and I don't know why, but people love pictures. They respond so well to pictures, and they are much more responsive. I don't know why. Maybe it's the fact that like a big portion of our brain is devoted to sight. I don't know, but people tend to have a lot of feedback for photos. So if you're trying to boost your Twitter, I guess, try this. It probably won't hurt. So we'll just wait on the universe to give us an answer. Sorry, I can't give you one right away. And I know this is probably not how you expected that to go, but you know, it's how it works. Um, oh, thanks, Scott. Appreciate the retweet of it. I've been missing the chat down here. Hey, Napcats. Nice to meet you. Load, do I need help? Yeah, I mean, if you know something about this, I hope I'm saying that right. LO4D. I would assume you're intending to be load, but if you can understand why we can't throw errors and set timeout and have them caught by error boundaries in React 16, I would be more than excited to hear what you know. So yeah, write it out in the chat, and I'll give it a try when I see it come up. But we'll get back to while we're waiting. I'm going to just throw the error in component did mount like I was doing before, and what I wanted to do was so we can that's all right. See, okay, this changes the whole thing I had planned, right? Like I had this thought that you would have to handle it via state, right? I had this idea that you'd have to throw and render because of the errors I was making last night. Clearly, you can throw errors in other methods. Like I bet you we can do it. Let's try the constructor. We've called the constructor. We got to call super too, right? I don't know why you throw an error there. I don't know what this will do. But we'll give it a try. It threw the error and it was caught. That's good to know. So in general, it seems like we can call them in lifecycle methods, but we can't call them asynchronously. I'm not sure what we'd have to do to make sure we catch errors asynchronously in our child components. But yeah, I'm a little stumped on that. So if anyone ever has an answer, please let me know. You can always tweet it at me at Kyle Shevlin. It's the same as my Twitch handle. Although I imagine most of you following me have found me through Twitter. So maybe I'm calling I'm preaching to the choir, right? But if not, please follow me. I try and have some fun up there. You guys want to see me answer questions to my wife on stream about D&D? Probably not, but it is kind of funny. I told you, if you were in the stream earlier, my wife is playing D&D with our friends right now. I was in the group. I was a rogue. I totally made my character based off. I called it a meta character. Phone's gonna die soon. Tyler, great to have you around. Why do you only have sound in your right ear? That's a great question. I'm going to guess that you only have sound in your right ear because I'm recording this in mono, and somehow the output is in stereo, and the output is only going to the right ear. So if you give me a second, Sweel, maybe I can figure that out. We're gonna debug our audio live. One of the challenging things about using this is I don't actually have a monitor setup of some way. Like I'm not actually hearing the levels it talked. Okay, I never did, but C+ has an You know what? I'm gonna read that load right after I try and make a change to the audio input capture. It's gonna be really weird to those who are on the stream, who end up having it go from right ear to full all of a sudden. The program must be restarted for these settings to take effect. Oh no! Okay. I'm gonna try and get this for y'all. Desktop audio device. Will you guys forgive me if I stop the stream and try it again? I'm going to switch it to mono and see if that fixes the problem. Got to work on that. Yeah, it's OBS, Sewell TV, or I'm sorry if I'm uh, you'll forgive me. All right, I'm gonna cancel this. I'm gonna stop the stream and I'll be right back. We'll give this a try. Bye. All right, people, we're back. I switched it to mono. I hope it's working. If it's not, I will debug it another time. I know you're laughing a little bit, but I actually used to do. Oh, much better. Awesome. So we got it working. Believe it or not, I was a musician for a number of years. I did audio production for, for mostly for churches, but also for some live venues. You might notice I have a guitar up there, and I actually, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a bunch of guitars in cases back there. So I don't play and sing much anymore. But yeah, it's something I used to do. I used to love mixing music. I do plan on making some like intro and outro music for this, and I'm going to start a podcast here pretty soon called Second Career Devs. And I plan on making music for that too. So yeah, I do know a little bit about that, so lucky me. I'm gonna turn off my notifications. I'm really happy that Kent and Mark are giving me answers. Let's check them out real quick, if you don't mind. Let's see. It's outside the React event loop, like how an error in this callback wouldn't catch. That's intentional as far as I know. React definitely catches error in renders and maybe in event handlers, not outside of that. Actually, I think it's unavoidable. Not sure why it'd be intentional. I'm going to thank Kent really quick. I'm going to ask, would this be the case for all async errors, or specifically because I'm using set timeout? Here's another thing. I've gotten to know some of these people over the last year or so. I met Kent recently at React Rally, and he is literally as nice in person as you might imagine. And I just have a little bit of advice if you're interested in like meeting or interacting with devs that you find admirable. Just remember that most people are people. Like, it sounds silly, but if you act like politely and you don't you just basically treat them like a person rather than say a celebrity, generally they'll respond back to you in the same. I haven't really met any jerks yet in this industry. I mean, I know they exist, but like I certainly don't spend time trying to admire jerks, but I should say people I've admired. I've never met them and been like, "Hi, my name is Kyle. I really appreciate your work," and I've never had anyone respond to me negatively. So if you ever get the chance, try and interact with them. You never know what kind of friendship you might strike up. And at the very least, you're going to learn a whole lot. I do, just by following these really smart people. That's how I get a lot of the knowledge I have. I'm going to turn this on to Do Not Disturb. Oh, and you know what? I totally screwed up. I never responded to my wife. You're going to have to forgive me for 1 second. She does take priority over she does take priority. I mean, that's just how family should be. I hope those of you, I hope all of you who have friends and family recognize how to balance your life in that way and keep your priorities straight. And if not, Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. All right, we're getting back to it. I'll probably stream for maybe about a half hour more. Um, After that, I'm gonna have to feed the cats. They're probably gonna start whining at me here pretty soon. Okay, so we learned that we can't throw errors in like a set timeout stack. I'm not entirely certain why, but Kent gave us a good answer. It's somehow out of the event loop basically of React. It's out of the loop of what React is doing. Um, so that's interesting. We might have to find other ways to catch and handle those errors. So life lessons, absolutely, Nap. That's why this is called More Than You Asked For, right? A little bit of JavaScript, a whole lot of life lessons. You don't get a beard this long and big without learning a few things, right? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, yeah, we've thrown some stuff. We've learned a little bit about error boundaries. I think I've probably exhausted the crap out of that for tonight. Let's move on to something else. And yeah, let's get rid of this throwaway component because it is throwaway. It's just, it can go in the trash. I don't need to keep it. I have no sentimental ties to that. Do not save that. Alrighty. Which also means now that we don't need these things. We might be cool on leaving error boundary around everything just to catch in case a mistake is made. But I don't plan on throwing anything tonight just yet. This is just to be extra thorough. So last night I started a little bit on working on the new chain form. To give you newcomers some insight into what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build an app for basically myself and my wife, and I suppose at some point later, Tyler, I'll be doing this some other time. Have a good night, man. Really appreciate it. And Stevie, I didn't notice you before. Welcome to the channel. Thank you. Getting back to it, I'm building this app for my wife and myself, and I'm gonna push myself to actually like release it for other people. But it's all about habit forming, and it's about getting the habit of doing something every single day. It's not about how much you do it. In this case, it's just about doing it a little bit. Any bit will add a link to your chain. This is kind of going off the Seinfeld calendars you may have heard of, where you just keep making X's and you don't break the chain, you don't break the streak. And so just to give you an idea of like a chain I'm doing really well with in my personal like goals is I've been keeping this GitHub streak going for good golly, May, June, July, August, and all of September. Yeah, Seinfeld, funny show. My phone is blowing up. See, you just ask the right people, they'll start answering all your questions for you. And when I'm done with this stream, I'll have answers about that error boundary thing. But yeah, I'm not trying to say this to brag. I'm saying this more as like this kind of commitment has helped me gain more knowledge. And the other thing it helps me do is maintain like context, right? Like how many of you have started a side project? Maybe you start at Saturday morning, you got your cup of coffee, you're feeling all good, and you jam for like 4 hours on this new thing, and then life takes over and you got to go do chores or go meet with your friends, and the rest of the week goes by and you haven't touched it at all. So next Saturday you sit down with your coffee and you go to start working on it, and all you do for the first 3 hours is try and remember what you did the last 4 hours on Saturday, right? Sorry, Nap. I took a second to read your comment. Yeah, feel free to don't have any fear here. I would rather people try to give me answers and try things out. I had this idea for a slogan for the stream to be welcome, where everyone suffers from imposter syndrome, and you're probably not as dumb as you think you are. I meant that with self-deprecation, right? Like, I'm really hard on myself, and sometimes I can be really dense, and I think myself, unfortunately, really stupid. It's not that I'm stupid, it's that it just takes time. You're not expected to know everything right away. But if you think you have an answer, I would love to hear it from you and from anyone else who ever watches this stream. Let's take chances. Let's try and do things without fear and without shame. That's how we're going to learn the quickest, and that's certainly how we're going to have the most fun, right? Is trying things, watching them break, and learning how to do it right. But yeah, I've been doing really well with this, and it really has helped me maintain context of what I've been working on a lot more day to day, because like, I don't lose. Hey, Childs, nice to see you. Thank you for joining the stream. Thank you so much. What I was saying was, like, you just lose context. Like, how many of you go back to work on Monday for your stand-up, and they're like, well, what did you do on Friday? And you just go, I have no idea. I can't remember what I did yesterday, But if I do something every single day, it gives me a really good chance of keeping that in my brain, and I don't lose as much time spinning up the next time. So that's my advice to you. Make a chain. Don't break it. Help you stay contextually aware of what you were working on. So, for example, I started working on this component yesterday. It's a new chain form component. So I'm calling this app chains. A user should be able to add as many chains as they want. And eventually I'll have them delete chains and the whole crud basically on chains. But I was just starting with the new one. And this is going to be a really simple form. It's going to... we have just a handle submit method that does nothing right now. What I want it to do is I want it to update the chains array, and I also want it to push... Excuse me. I want it to push that array to local storage, because that's where I'm currently storing my data. To catch everyone up on how my data is getting fed to my app, first I just have some default data to get started, because it's kind of nice to have some kind of mock to build your UI around. And I just often do that by when I'm first getting started, by literally just having a mocks file. I try not to overcomplicate code organization when I'm building, just prototyping or first starting an app. We can always take the time to improve things later. I tend to be pretty good about not going too far down a hole that I can't undo. So this should be pretty simple, and eventually I plan to connect this to Firebase, so we'll definitely do that on stream. We'll connect this app to Firebase, and we'll use that to store our data back and forth. But right now, I'm just going to store it with local storage, and we'll close the... Oops, didn't mean to... local storage, currently I just have two functions that I'm exporting out to the rest of my app. I can load the state from local storage. It's just going to try and find... it's going to try and find it based on the state key, and that state key, I just have it up here as a const. And if it finds it, it'll parse it and return it. And then we also have save state, which will take the state of our application, it'll serialize it, and it'll set it in local storage. So we can actually pull in, we'll put in save state right now from local storage. And then what we'll want to do is we'll want to take our app's current state. I don't have Redux into this app at the moment. I mean, I do have it there, but am I using it? I might be using it. Sweet. I am using it. So I can update chains, and we can go through this whole thing, and we can build out Redux for all the actions that we're going to do at some point. But it looks like I should be able to update the chains which should just take an array of chains and pass it to the store. I mean, to the reducer. The reducer update chains is just replacing them. Okay. Okay, that's simple enough. So we're also going to then import React Redux here and pull the current chains into our props. So if you're familiar with the connect component, it's a higher order component from this package that what it does is it takes a couple arguments, specifically the two you'll use the most if you're not familiar with React and Redux, is it'll use map state to props, map dispatch to props. What that means is we can take state out of our Redux store and we can map it to props into this component. And then we can also take actions and we can bind them to the dispatch function on the store and pass those functions as props to our component as well. So, you know what, Load? I let a lot of my projects go unfinished too, which is actually kind of why I'm starting this stream. Is I'd say like good 70-80% of the things I start don't get finished, and it's the same. It was always the same for me with music as well. I'm definitely a starter. I'm not a finisher when it comes to this stuff, but I want to improve upon that. I want to care less about being perfect, and I want to care a little bit more about actually getting code out the door, right? Yeah, see, you're a starter. I think a lot of us suffer from this, and I think there's a good reason, and I don't think we should feel bad about this, but I think it comes from kind of that rush, that high. Maybe you get, maybe you're like me. You get like a really good feeling about a new idea and cranking out a bunch of code and seeing an idea start to take shape. Like it's a whole 80-20, right? It's that first 80% can be like really easy actually, and then it's really hard to finish that last 20% because those are all the challenging things or all the things that are tedious. And if you're like me, I really struggle to do tedious things. I love big ideas. I love big energy. I do not like tedium. Oh well. But I think that's why we tend to start more than we finish. But I think it's important to at least practice getting better at shipping because that's how we grow. We stretch ourselves, and when you actually finish a project, like you'll learn so much from actually doing that. So part of why I started this stream is to force myself to be a little more accountable of actually writing code and getting stuff done. Um, I'm not sure I'm doing that so far, but I will say I'm having a whole lot of fun, and I hope you guys are too. It's really fun to have you all chatting and responding and helping me out. So thank you so much. Let's try and connect this to the Redux store before I gotta feed my cats, as I said, and I meant that they're somewhere around here. They're being pretty quiet. I'm impressed actually. Okay, so we have some state that we need to map. So I still kind of handle this maybe old school. I just like to set a const down here and just return the state. The state that matters to us is we're gonna make a chains prop, and it should just be should just be state.chains. And then that belongs here. And we'll pull in the update chains as well. So for those of you who don't know, you don't have to manually like bind dispatch. You can actually just Scotty. Yeah, man. Well, then we are very different. I'm sorry. I'm going to take a moment to address Scott's comment. Um, I think that's really awesome though that you are dedicated like that. I hope any future girlfriend you have or partner, you learn to have some balance. But the fact that you know how to finish, I think that's great. And I would not feel any like shame or worry about the fact that you're a finisher, because we need people like you. In fact, like starters should probably team up with someone like you who's capable of like keeping people honest and encouraging them and getting them across the finish line. So kudos to you for that. I appreciate you for that. And I don't mean that to sound cheesy at all. I really do admire people who can get shit done. So kudos to you, Scott. Back to what I was saying. Some people don't know. I'm still surprised to find out some people don't know that from map dispatch to props, you can just pass an object of action creators, and they will get bound automatically. They are run through the bind action creators method before getting sent as props to the component. So we need to import that as well. So we're going to import, I believe it was update chains from actions. I'm going to go double check that, and I know that'll break. But yeah, update chains. Nice. And then down here, update chains. And we don't have to write it twice. And then here, map dispatch to props. And then, of course, we will have to add these as prop types. Make sure our linter doesn't yell at us. I tend to do that here. And chains is an array. And I think I can do array of prop types. Is it shape? I think I can do shape. And we can do, let's look at my mock file really quick and get the ID is a prop type of number. Name is a prop types.string. These are all is required. Airbnb lint is really strict, but that's a good thing in this case. It really makes you take the time to get this right. And then these are required. Looks like, I hope I did that all right. And then update chains is a prop types.func, and it's also required. I think that's right. Save state is defined but never used. Chains prop type is defined but never update. Okay. Okay. I was sorry. I was a little confused by this error with the asterisks. But anyways, we can use them. What we're gonna do is drink a little beer. First off, beer is my coding fuel in the evening. I don't know about you. Maybe you can share with me your coding fuel of choice on Twitter or in the stream here. I like to think I drink coffee all day, and then all my vices are beverages. So coffee all morning gets me going, and then beer at night to bring me back down. Uppers and downers. I don't recommend that. Whatever has caffeine. I do drink an absurd amount of soda as well. I've never gotten over that, and I'm even lame. I have to do diet soda these days because I can't handle all the sugar. So we all have our problems, right? If only we could set error boundaries on ourselves. No, I'm just kidding. I'm being lame on purpose. All right. So we have these props available to us, update chains, and we're going to use them here. Thank you, Scott, for appreciating my jokes. and making me feel fruit smoothies if I can. You know, I like a good smoothie once in a while. I don't have the craving as often as my wife, though. I probably should. I definitely need a lot more vitamins in my life. Um, you know, I'm getting older, the body's crapping out. You know, it's just probably a good thing to get more of those nutrients in me. I'm from the Midwest, so I have this bad habit of eating meat and potatoes like all the time. I told you my wife's out tonight, so I, of course, went and got a burger and a whole mountain of fries, and I ate those like they were nobody's business. Not even an ounce of shame. All right, let's pull in update chains and chains from the props. And we're going to update the chains array. So the first thing I want to do is I don't actually want to update the chain this way. I don't want to update all the I want to pass in a chain, I think. I don't want to pass in all the chains. We're going to singularize this. We're going to update a chain. No, is that what I want to do? You know what? I just want a new function that adds a chain. That's what I want. And it's going to take a chain, and it's going to return an action of type. I'll have to add this. Add chain. Chain. Okay, that's what I really want. And everywhere this is, we'll just add chain. And then in my types file, I keep an action types file. We'll just duplicate this. Add chain, right? That was singular. Oops. What am I doing? There we go. Add chain. Good. Okay. And then I guess in our reducer, we'll have to add an add chain. And what we're going to do is we're going to return state, and chains will be a new array of all the current chains and the action.chain, the one that we returned. The video is blocking your right pane. Oh, good call. Thank you. I will have to work on that. See, you guys, we're partners. You're helping me help you. Helping me help you. All right. I've got it. I've actually got the feed in my bottom screen. I just need to pay attention to that, and won't have that problem. And actually, I bet you if I just always code in a single file rather than splitting it, we'll be good. At some point, I plan to get a much higher resolution monitor, and hopefully we'll be able to see a little more code at one time. But what I did is we added a new case of add chain. We're turning all the state, and what we're doing is we're just going to spread an array of the current chains and add the chain that we're passing in our action. So in our new chain form, we have the add chain action, right? And we're getting that with props. And what we're going to do is, assuming that we have a new name, what we're going to do is, how do I want to handle this? Okay, what we're going to do is I need to generate an ID, so I won't be able to use these numbers anymore. I don't want them to just like auto increment. Eventually, like I'll get an ID back from a database, and what I can actually just send this, I can just send the name and a length of 0 on its construction, and let the ID be populated by, say, a database, and that's returned to me, and that'll be unique every time. But right now, I can't create unique IDs. I could do just an incrementer, but that won't work right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in a package I've used before. I'm just thinking of this up on the fly, so I think it's called short ID, if I remember. It's basically a UUID for unique. It's a unique ID generator. If I'm using mock data, yeah, I'm going to add back to the, like, in my state, I'm adding it, right? Like, so, like, I just want to practice this right now. Like, when I generate a new chain, I want to have a unique ID, and you know, it's just a better habit to make sure it's unique and not do it with any kind of mutation, like having like next ID plus plus, right? I just don't want to mutate that with I don't want to do any mutations in my reducer. So this is all it is, though. It's just short ID generate. So yeah, we'll just pull this in. Yarn add short ID as a. Oh, looks like I have another error somewhere. Fun. Timestamp would be a really great way, and probably would have been a lot faster when I've done. I will keep that in mind in the future, Napcats. That's a really good idea. I like that one, especially when, you know, I'm just doing something quick. All right, so, and we will pull in. So really then our add chain action really only takes a name. It takes a name property, and then we will generate, we'll call this dot props. Oh, we don't have to. We'll do add chain this dot state dot name. We're gonna pass the name, right? And we'll generate the ID and an automatic length of 0 in our reducer. So this will be a little bit different. ID will do, I gotta pull it in, but I'm just gonna write it now. Short ID generate. Name is action name, and then length will be 0. I need to close the object. That's important. Okay, and then we just need to. Actually, I don't want to handle it here. I want to also generate that. I want to generate that in the action creator so that my reducers are always pure. So yeah, let's not do that here. It will be eventually a chain. We'll just do action dot chain. But this will be a bit strange. And I will think about whether this was the right way I wanted to handle this. But new chain will equal ID, short ID generate, name, and length 0. And we will just pass in chain as new chain. And to reduce typing, we don't even need to do that. We'll just do this. It is not a React convention, childs. It is a personal preference with JavaScript. So I don't want to go into too much length. Maybe I'll start the. You know, I can pull up a little bit of something, but so semicolons aren't necessary in JavaScript except in 4 instances. If you are to start a line with either of these 3 characters, if you start it with a backtick, if you start it with an opening parentheses, or you start it with an opening bracket, in these 3 cases, you have to have a semicolon in front of it. It won't do what's called ASI, automatic semicolon insertion. The JavaScript engine will do that for you everywhere else but these three cases. And the fourth case that I mentioned is you do need them if you're going to write, say, a for loop, and you're going to separate your statements inside. So you might have like equals 0. You need to separate whenever you have statements on the same line. Yes, they need to be separated by semicolon. So I is less than 10, I plus plus. So the reason I picked up this habit is I was using a linter called standard by Feras. I can pull that up, JS standard. Let's see if that'll come up. So you can go to standardjs.com and read all about it. But it's just a very opinionated linter. And I used this for like a year and a half when I was really diving in. And it's no semicolons. It's fine, really. Like there's an article about it. So you can go read about this and learn about it. So it is a bit of a personal preference. It's definitely not React related. You can use it in any JavaScript. Does he stream on Twitch? That's awesome. I might have to check that out. He hasn't been on in a while, though. I heard him recently on JavaScript, not JavaScript, My JavaScript Story on that podcast. It was pretty interesting to hear his story. Anyways, the reason I moved all this to the action creator is so that the reducer is pure every time. So the chain that we end up sending to the reducer is not getting mutated at all. So like the key is that whenever we give it the same arguments, we always get the same new state back out, right? If I was generating IDs in the reducer, that would make it impure. Ferocity, it's just, some people have lucky names where they can do really fun things like that. I don't. I do like my name. I can't do anything fancy. I guess I was called Chevy a lot as a kid, but I haven't really been called that since high school. Golang. Okay, yeah, I've never written Golang, so I honestly don't know anything about its formatting. I do know that it has a formatter, right? Like, and that's pretty nice. It means the whole community formats all their Go the same way, right? I think that's awesome. I think that's kind of what Prettier could be for the JavaScript community, but it's going to take a long time to really convince everyone to do that. So I should write a test for this. I don't have time to write that test tonight. Maybe next time when we start up, I'll write a test for this and I'll show you how to use Jest to do that if you don't already know. I don't even need chains. Look at that. I don't even need this. I don't need to pull in all the chains. I just need the add chain. We get to clean up our code quite a bit. All right, so in the past 6 months, I've been doing more Golang than any other. It's an awesome. You know, that's what I hear. I hear it's a great language. I don't write a lot of back-end code, so I don't think I have a lot of time to reason to learn it. The thing I'm kind of interested in learning, but haven't taken really any time to do, is Reason ML. I think that looks pretty interesting. I'm pretty interested in functional programming, and I'm actually working on trying to build up like a conference talk around functional programming. And I'm sure we'll do some of that in here. I'm no expert, not even a little bit, but I really find it interesting and intrigues the mathematician in me. I wasn't excited about programming since I didn't pick up programming till 5, maybe 6 years ago. I was actually, believe it or not, I was a pastor before I taught myself how to code. I have a master's in theology, and we can definitely get into that some other time on the stream. It's actually why I'm starting the Second Career Devs podcast, as this is my second career. And I really think there are some cool stories and lessons to be learned from people who did a different career before doing programming. So I'll save that for another time, though. I want to try and wrap this up, and then I'm going to try and wrap up this stream. So let's try and see if this works. When we submit, we're going to prevent the default. We just don't want it trying to do anything on the server. And then we will just add that chain. If we're following all our logic right, add chain just returns the state, spreads all the chains in an array, and then the new chain that we made. And in our action, we're going to create a chain with the name that we give it and a default length of 0 and a brand new ID. And I didn't pull that in, so let's do that. Import short ID from short ID. And we'll check our linter real quick. Make sure it's not yelling at me too much. Save state is defined but never used. Add chain is already declared in the upper scope. That's interesting. Okay. Import add chain. This dot props. That is interesting. That should not be an error, that one. Unless there's some weird binding issue. So let's just do it this way. We'll just do this dot props. There's no reason to deconstruct it. And then save state was not being used yet. And actually, I don't even think I need to do that, because if I pull up my store file, yeah, anytime my store, anytime the chains are updated, it's going to save the state. So that's going to happen for me automatically. So short ID should be listed in the products. Remove short ID. Well, I don't need to remove it. I just like doing it this way. Short ID D. I'm lazy. I don't like moving things around the package.json. And you have the whole lock file thing with yarn. So, and if you're on npm5, you also have a lock file. So, come on. I think it's going slow because I'm streaming and my Wi-Fi sucks. I don't know why you're doing that. And then I hope the feed doesn't get killed while it goes through this. I don't know that it's always better to use yarn, but it was definitely a big step up from npm4, right? Getting the lock file was really important, and it was frankly just a lot faster at the time. There are some sweet things with npm5 that I like. Specifically, npx is pretty cool. The ability to run commands without, like, I won't do the definition justice right now, so I'm just going to save that for another time. But npx, if you want to look it up, it's a pretty cool thing. There's a really good Medium article by her name is Space Cats, actually. But she wrote a good Medium article on it. She works for NPM, and definitely worth checking out. NPX. Okay. So, I'm not sure why this failed to compile. No such file, short ID. We're just going to turn it off and start it back on. Maybe it just didn't pick it up quite right. If it fails, we'll try it again. We'll figure out what it's supposed to be called. Certainly taking a long time to bundle. Okay, that compiled successfully. Okay, so this should build up. And what should I add a chain? Stream every day. I definitely shouldn't stream every day. That would be exhausting. I like you guys, but I got other things I gotta do. I'll probably stream, I think, once or twice a week. That'll be about my average. And hey, at least it came up. the ID is a string now. That's true. It's definitely a string instead of a number. So I would have to make that something else. That was in chains container. What I could do is in the mocks, you know, we'll just make these strings for now. And that way we only have to change this to string. And then that should all pass. And did it store it in my local state? It did not. I might have to work on that. String supplied to chains list. Oh, gotta chase down all the prop types. Oh, undo. There's no polish here, folks. Doing it live. But that's good, right? Like, we all have to learn how to make errors and how to learn from them. And it's good to see how people debug. I certainly learn a lot when I watch my teammates or anyone else like debug a problem on the fly. So, the stream on Twitch, we'll add that. And yay, no errors. We didn't reset this, so we'll make sure to do that. This dot set state name to empty. And I'm sure there's more that we can do. Stream on Twitch. And then I'm going to try and refresh the page. And okay, so I'm not going to worry right now about the fact that it's not quite saving to my local storage state, because in the long run, that's not what I'm going to do, but I can solve that next week. I've got a cat who just walked in right down here. She's feisty. She won't let me pick her up and put her on camera for you, but she knows it's dinner time. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch me tonight. I really appreciate it. As I get better at this, I'm sure we'll get more code done. Thank you for chatting with me. I really appreciated it. It's fun to get to talk to other developers and people who are learning. If you ever have any questions that you want me to try and cover on the stream, things you want to learn together, please send me a tweet at Kyle Shevlin. And, you know, go ahead and follow me on Twitter if you're not already. And subscribe to the channel if you're not, so that you know when I'm streaming. I'll probably be streaming... oh, hey Tally. I don't know if you can see this, but she's getting up on my up on me. So, yeah, as I was saying, I'm going to try and be a little consistent. Probably Tuesdays and Thursdays, maybe Wednesdays. I don't know. It'll be at least one time in the middle of the week. And I'll be sure to tweet about it a little more in advance in the future. So, once again, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.